when you're using Illustrator, you should set up what you need to be doing with your symbols and your layers and everything as you go along. Now, what I'm going to do is set up a panning background. I need to have several layers that will pan at a different rate of speed. This gives a sense that you have a multi-plane camera like Disney used in Bambi. So in the foreground, everything moves faster because it's closer to you, and because of perspective, because of your point of view, the things that are closer to you appear to be moving faster as you're walking along. And then the next layer moves a little bit slower, but not too much slower. Next layer, a little bit slower, much slower. Then background, far areas like, mountains in the background, and then the sky. So that's what I've got set up here. I went ahead and I drew these shapes. I started out with one shape, and each shape then I changed the actual shape by making it smaller, making it less wide, and then having it layered. So it's really the same shape, changed each one. I've got the foreground layer, which is this bright green here. I'm going to unlock these so you can get to them. So I've got the foreground here, which is this bright green here, and I have called it green in the layers, if you look at the layers. And then in the symbols, I've got the foreground layer here is called green ground. Then I go to the next layer. It's the same shape, I just made it smaller. And this one's the mid-green ground. And here it is a symbol. And you can see I've got green, mid-green, dark green. Go to the dark green. And that's this layer here, and this symbol, dark green ground. Then I go to the mountains, which of course the mountains are going to be sort of the Purple Mountains Majesty. You always remember that song, right? The Purple Mountains Majesty. And then of course there's the Misty Mountain Hop, and that's the one that the Led Zeppelin did back in the 70s, 80s. So you've got these ideas of, because of atmospheric perspective, which I'm sure you learned about in your drawing classes and probably in art history, looking at some of those paintings from Pompeii, you've got the wonderful atmospheric perspective that allows you to get the sense that something is further away from you because the colors are less saturated, they're not as contrasty, and you see less detail. So, and this is because of the effect of having any kind of humidity in the air cuts down on the amount of color and contrast that you can see. So we've got our misty mountain background here. We've got different colors in the ground, so you can get a sense that the closest is brightest and has the most saturation, and as it falls back, you have less contrast, less saturation. And we make them widths that allow us to move them when we get into Flash. So as we're moving, we want to move the foreground the most, so it's the widest. The next layer, not quite as much, it's not quite as wide. The next layer, even less wide, the mountain's much, much smaller. And then the sky itself, since the sky isn't really going to move, it's not really that much wider. It's just enough so I can throw in a cloud or something and make it look like it's moving, but I haven't done that yet. I'm just leaving it at this point. So once we're done looking at that, I'm going to, of course, in the symbols, I have to bring this up. In the symbols, when you open it up, you've got preset symbols. And some of these symbols are things you're not going to be using. But there are buttons. Remember, there's buttons. You can get those buttons from Illustrator if you want to, but you don't want it necessarily on your panning background. So I got rid of all the buttons that were in there. I got rid of all the symbols, and I just went ahead and left it a blank window so I can put new symbols in and not get confused and not have it bring it into my Flash and have all these layers that are just not even going to be there. So I've got my just basic symbols there. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that, and then we can make this, we can either close it entirely or we can just minimize it, but I'm going to close it.